This is Taking Care of Business with Marty Pay and Clay Kerner on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180. Taking Care of Business is brought to you by Alliance Brokers and Consultants and Human Resources Outsourcing Incorporated. Now, here are your local business professionals ready to help you take care of business. Marty and Clay.
Welcome to Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180 with your host Clay Kerner, and I'm Marty Pay. We are live in studio. The number to call and join us this afternoon is 842-KERN or 842-5376. Our engineer behind the glass is Goose. The Goose is loose behind the glass. An old standby here at 1180 is Goose, and he's finally back. Our guest in the second and third quarter of the show is Sally Pipes from the Pacific Research Institute to talk about Obamacare. And you won't want to miss that interview.
What kind of care was that?
Obamacare, your favorite subject?
Yeah, that's the worst kind of care you can possibly get, Marty.
Yeah. But before that, we're going to talk to an old friend of mine from days gone by, the state senator from the Antelope Valley, running for the State Board of Equalization, one of the really, really good guys in this business, George Runner. George, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Marty. How are you?
Boy, can you believe the last time you and I did this, I was trying to think. It was the intro was Understanding the Times with George Runner and Marty Pay.
That's right, Marty. And it must have been nearly 20 years ago.
I think it was about 1993, wasn't it?
Looking at Marty, it looks like it might have been 30 or 40 years ago.
Listen, George, before we go on, I understand
That's when we only had radio. You know, there was no TV, so...
And everything was on tape, right?
Yeah, that's right.
On cassettes. Hey, I understand, before we get into this, I understand some congratulations are in order. Your daughter's going to get married in June.
Yeah, our daughter, Rebecca, who actually she's been in the Coast Guard, just coming out of the Coast Guard, transferred to the Coast Guard Reserve, and has got a wedding date set in June of next year with a Coast Guard mate that they have found, and so it's in fact today they are actually down looking at wedding dresses. So
great!
She's out visiting for a few days. So Sharon and Rebecca and a few of her friends are down in Los Angeles. Spending their mother's money.
Well, that's always a good thing. Well, I've got a question the obvious question for you is, why are you running for the Board of Equalization?
Well, you know, California is really unique in that it's the only state that has a directly elected tax board, the Board of Equalization. The board there's 5 people on it. 4 of them are elected by districts in the state, which means these districts are really, really large. You've got to have 9 million people in your district, and the district that I'm running for, District 2, starts down in Redlands, California, and then moves from there all the way to the Oregon border. So it's, of all the San Joaquin counties and cities, it has an L.A. county in it, has parts of L.A. County, Ventura County, so they're just huge. And then the state controller sits on as the 5th person. And the board is actually... sits and makes decisions about taxpayers' tax dollars when there's dispute. That's one of the things it does. So if you have a dispute over a sales tax or an income tax or special tax, eventually you can go to a board of elected officials and get a judgment as to whether or not the tax collector has made a good decision. So, that's one of the roles. It has some other roles maybe we'll talk about too. But, basically, I'm a strong, I believe California's overtaxed. I believe that that when you're overtaxed, you actually lose liberty, because now all of a sudden, instead of making your choices with your money, government makes your choices for you. And so, I'm wanting to go there to continue to protect taxpayers, just as I've been able to do in the state legislature.
Now we've got another, I guess it's a special assessment or a tax that's coming up because of the air quality in the San Joaquin Valley, a $12 per car tax.
The problem is that government just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and and the sad thing about that is whenever you see these regulatory taxes go on, or fees as they call them, and hopefully we're going to get that squared away here in this election with understanding that fees are just other tax and require the same kind of vote threshold as a tax does. But the problem is that they continue to just grow government, because what's government do with those fees and those taxes? They go out and hire more bureaucrats. Where do those bureaucrats go? They go out and then create new levels of inspections, new levels of standard, new levels of testing that they need to do. And what does that do? It needs a demand for new taxes or fees. It's a cycle that just continues to grow the size of government, which I think right now we're hearing across this nation, thank goodness, is enough of that.
Well, talking about, in a way, conservative versus liberal, I noticed something that I hadn't seen before when I was doing a little reading up for the interview today. The 2009 Capitol Weekly Legislature Scoreboard. I love this score. 100 being a perfect liberal, 0 being a perfect conservative. You scored a 3.
Yeah, I got to figure out where those 3 points came from.
No, I was surprised. What happened, George?
Well, how do you expect to get elected in a Democratic-run state, George, if you only score a 3?
Well, the good news is that the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association just came out with their scoreboard, I think, yesterday, and I was only one of 5 that got 100%. So, I prefer, those scores are just fine with me. And the fact is that the good news is about this district is I'm running in the 2nd district, which is a Republican-leaning district. I have an opponent. My opponent actually is a tax collector. He works for the State Franchise Tax Board. He's a tax attorney and spends his time figuring out how to go after taxpayers. And it's interesting if you look at where he gets his money from. I mean, he's raised, significant dollars for his race. They all come from unions, and you think, well, what's a union what's a public employees union? They don't have anything that ever has. They don't have tax consequences. Why are they feeding him such large amounts of money? The answer is because they need somebody on there who will continue to go after taxpayers, so that they can go ahead and continue to grow government, so they can continue to be the beneficiary of those dollars.
No kidding. Hey, George, I went and saw a movie the other day called I Want Your Money.
Yeah.
That was a great movie where Reagan is trying to explain to Obama the difference between capitalism and socialism.
It is really a fun movie. It's a fun movie. And
then I recognized an interesting name in there, George Runner.
I got to do a little small piece in that, and it was a lot of fun to be a part of what truly is a documentary on the philosophy difference between capitalism and free enterprise and protecting people's liberties, and those who want to change society to one where society just takes care of you, and for that reason we need more and more of your money. So that's hence the name, I Want Your Money. And it's a great group of people who talked through that, and they did a great job of the claymation part of how they went and did the little cartoons and whatnot. It's a fun little movie.
Well, I can't wait to see it. I do have one question for you, George. Unfortunately, we're going to have to let you go soon, but I wanted to talk to you today before the election. But since you've spent a sizable amount of time in Sacramento in the last, what's it been now, 16 years you've been
Yeah,
out there?
I will have spent 12 years.
12 years, that's right. What do you, a lot of people lately have been talking about not voting for either Meg or for Jerry Brown because of her being somewhat of a social liberal.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on that, being as conservative as you are?
Well, the fact is that there's a huge difference in how the two of them will govern. Not everybody is always the total package, and sometimes that's hard and disappointing. But the fact is, let me tell you, there's just a huge difference in regards to how Meg Whitman will govern and how Jerry Brown will govern. I think part of our problem is the deep disappointment we have with our current governor, who many of us had great hopes for, but just seemed to, once he got defeated there at the ballot box at the beginning of his term, decided somehow he needed to just kind of give up and move to the left. The difference, I think, is that Meg is a hardcore conservative when it comes to fiscal issues, and it's something that she owns and is deep down for. Now, I've got great questions or disagreements with her in regard to some social issues, but at the same time, even on social issues, she's more conservative than our current governor, and certainly more conservative than Jerry Brown. So, I mean, the other issue that people just forget all about, and that's the issue of the thousands of appointments to commissions and organizations and regulators that the governor gets to make. the judges that get to be made. Those are the kinds of things where if you have a hardcore committed liberal like Jerry Brown is, that will be devastating, continue to be even more devastating to the state. I hope people kind of understand that and realize that there is a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, George, thank you for spending this little bit of time that we could today with you, and I'd love to have you back after the election.
Absolutely. And, again, you guys have a business interest dealing with that, and a lot of the folks that are in business and dealing with the issues do a lot of work with with the Board of Equalization, the tax collector that deals with many of their issues, and we'd be glad to spend some more time specifically even on some of the issues that we need to do and to make sure that we treat businesses fairly. They're customers that I believe the state has, not just somehow somebody to go and get more money from.
Yeah, we would love to have you back after the election, George.
We'll do that.
And again, congratulations, and wish Sharon my best for me.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
We'll be back in a minute on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180.